Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this first session of EpiSkills organized by the African Commission of ILAE. Incidentally, we have to celebrate all the effort of this commission, African Commission. We make a great job to bring epilepsy really out of the shadow in Africa. Tonight, to talk about access to clinical skills training, welcome to our brilliant speakers and panelists, which are Professor Gallo Diop from Senegal, Professor Joe Winchester from Cape Town, Professor Edouard Kilja, Dr. Melody Asikile, Mrs. Vina Kander, Professor Igna Blomke, Professor Gagandeep Singh, and as a panelist, Professor Lawrence Tucker. I'm here for the moderation. Welcome to our speakers, and thank you to give your valuable time. And now we can start with Professor Gallo Diop, who is my personal mentor, teacher, and who is in the French side of Africa, the Mr. Epilepsy of West African countries. So thank you very much, Professor Gallo, for your time. And you have the floor to start your presentation about the WFN, the World Federation of Neurology Accredited Training Hubs in Africa. Professor Gallo Diop, you have the floor. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Zainab. Hi to everybody. How much minutes do I have?
About 10 to 12 minutes.
Okay, right. Right, okay. I'm very pleased to join you guys. I really miss you. I think that we've met physically a very long time ago, and I really miss that. But I know that the job is going on. I'm not retired. I'm just behind the scene because of huge responsibilities in the Ministry of Higher Education, managing in the same time the Department of Nursing. I'm really busy, but I'm in your word, it's my word, and I'm pleased to come back this night with you. I'm going to be, focused on what you need to, hear from me. I maybe should start by a London meeting in 2020, with the board of WFN, which invited me to come and talk about what can be done for Africa. And that's led to the setting up of Africa initiative of WFN. Different presidents has managed this project, and different African countries have also joined the movement. And it was a great time for history of neurology in Africa. I do know that it comes from different informal talks all around the world between Professor Michel Dumas, who is the founder of the Department of Neurology in Dakar after Professor Henri Collin. Then it moved to Ivory Coast and to all the French-speaking African countries, Western, Central, and Northern countries. And when we take the lead of this thing, we have, we've been very clear about what can be done. And I remember that I've described to them what's going on. And before I recall the Buenos Aires International League Congress, where it was the very first time that, coming from the small country, with a small guy in front of 4,000 people, I was really impressed. And I remember my talk, and after there was a standing ovation, because that was the very first time there was hearing talking about the African reality described by an African young neurologist. You know, and in London, were born the slogan, "In Africa, for Africa." And I've been very pleased to see in the different emails and communications that you want us to be really focused on this slogan, "In Africa, for Africa." And I want to let you know that I've seen recently in a newspaper an advertising message from a French company selling cars who is using our slogan, "In Africa, for Africa." Unfortunately, it was not protected, so we are missing a lot of money because of that. Well, the slogan became a reality, and many schools were born in Africa, training neurologists in Africa for the African needs. I'm very happy to see that after Dakar and Abidjan for the French part, Bamako, Ouagadougou, Lomé, Togo, Yaoundé are set up school. But you may know that in the English part, South Africa, Egypt, in the south parts on the continent are doing, great since decades and decades. You may also know that Northern Africa, I mean, Morocco and Tunisia were also very old school training a lot of neurology. The ratio is now about 1 neurologist for 1 million or 800,000 people in sub-Saharan Africa. It was 1 neurologist for 4 million, 20 years ago. That means that things are really improving. The ratio is very different for South Africa, which is quite close to the northern country and in northern country. You asked me to talk about the WFN's training site. After several years, it has been decided that we should have 4 regional centers for hosting young neurologists who can benefit from scholarships and so on from WFN, but also for any related international organization. I mean, International League, International Child Neurology, and so on and so on. And these 4 cities are Rabat in Morocco, Cairo in Egypt, Cape Town in South Africa, and Dakar. Dakar is a center for neurology since 1957. I was not born, and since that year, 65 years ago, almost 300 people have been trained in neurology in Dakar for all African countries, even for France, because during the first decade, many doctors, French doctors who were doing the medical school have benefited from that. But since 1997, when we start, doing training in neurology, has been trained more than 200 young neurologists, including the great Zainab in Mali and several other neurologists in every African country. It's a 4 years training, regarding all the aspects of the neurology with our limited material, but the limitation of material is an opportunity because it gives to our trainee a great, one of the greatest sense of clinical diagnosis. Our trainees are very strong for making diagnosis after, questions and real examination of the nervous system. They're great for that. And after that, if they have CT scan and neurophysiology is great, but if we really close to the diagnosis. I'm really very proud of this. And our trainees, many of them now are professors of neurology and are also training young doctors in the country. Last part is about training in epileptology. We start doing it in Dakar since 2010, and since that time, we have trained almost 150 epileptologists. It's a one-year training, going to the clinical, to all the other aspects in epileptology. And for the 4 years training and for the 1 year training in epileptology, after a kind of contest, WFN is giving a scholarship for registration for daily life living in Dakar, and it's by this way that the very first neurologist for Rwanda, Djibouti, Comoros, which has no neurologists at all, have got their first knowledge. And many of the African countries, if you look where the neurologists come from, before they start doing it on site, they were coming either from Dakar or from Ivory Coast. This is, ladies and gentlemen, in a summary, what I can tell to you, going back from the history of our field to the improvement in the international cooperation since the beginning of year 2000 and so on, and what is the current reality and the great impact that everybody can measure, can see in all African countries. And my last word is that this is a success story of South-South cooperation with a company of North-South cooperation. This is a company of international institutions, who are very generous to try and understand, who come to us, who work with us in respect of the slogan, which is our, mastermind, field of acting and doing in Africa, for Africa, but in an international cooperation open to any generous person or to any generous international institution. I'm very pleased to have shared these few words with you and very proud to be a member of this great family of neuroscience all over the world and in particular in Africa. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Professor Joe. I don't know if it's more likely to ask him the question now or to take the question at the end of the session. I don't know if someone has an idea about what we have to do. But I have already one question in the QR session, which is from Professor Joe. It's from Gambian Adama Jallo Jane, the co-founder and the president of the only organization in the Gambia advocating for the access to healthcare service and regular medication. In your experience, that is his question. In your experience in Senegal, what are the lessons learned and how can we benefit from your experience? Professor Job, you want to answer to this question?
Je n'ai pas très bien compris la question.
La question, in your experience in Senegal, what are the lessons learned and how can we benefit from your experience? The question is from someone who lives in Gambia and who is advocating for the access to healthcare service and regular medication, maybe for epilepsy.
Okay, well, the lesson that I used to share with my, women and men, including yourself, Zainab, and that what I used to say everyone. First is work hard, 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 every day, every night. Work hard. Second message is do not have any complex regarding anyone all over the world. No complex. No hypertrophy of ego, but no complex. Work hard and try and reach the club of the best professional in the world. Third message, wherever you go and what opportunity you can benefit from, come back home in Africa and be a part of the solution. 80% of the problems are in Africa, and only 20% of the solution are in Africa. My message number 4 is to be open-minded and build up cooperation inside the country with all the other specialties, because we are too few to think that we can manage by our own strokes, epilepsy. We have to cooperate with gynecologists, pediatrician, international medicine, infectiology, head trauma, specialists, and so on. Train the other doctor for the basic thing to do, and train, because we forget them very often, the paramedical staff. We need nurses to be trained to manage neurology disease. Message number 5 is travel all over the world, meet the expert, try and build cooperation in terms of research, in terms of training. Let them come to your country and see what are the reality. Go to their country, but please come back and stop this brain drain. And as Professor Njamshi is used to say, train and retain. You know, that's the way that we can face the reality, bridge the gap, and make the difference slowly. And the difference is, you know, becoming narrow and narrow. It's slow, but I can guarantee to you that what I'm seeing since 30 years is a dramatic improvement of the situation. It's slow, but it's really improving. And I'm very pleased that this question comes from Gambia. You know, it's so ridiculous to see this English-speaking country, which is inside Senegal and which cannot benefit from expertise they can get from Senegal because of this ridiculous problem of language barrier. This is ridiculous. And we should go beyond this problem of frontiers or political matters or language. We should cooperate, and we have all the expertise with, you know, people like Joe, with Lawrence, and the people from Kenya, everywhere. And we are using our link and relationship we have with all over the world, Europe, Americas, Asia, because we are becoming friends and we can do things, and we are really doing things. This is my answer to this question, to encourage you, young generation, to take the lead, and you doing it so well. We're proud of you, and move up to the success and to the excellence.
Thank you, Professor. I think he's satisfied by this response. Thank you to remember us of this relation, this valuable relation. Africa is a one continent. We don't have to go complex for anything. We have to work hardly. And yes, we understand and we try to do our best to talk about Africa in the great position. Thank you for all your lessons. I don't know if our one panelist, which is Prof. Tucker, has to add something to what Professor Job has said, because he also is the head of the second center of accredited center of the WFN. So I don't know if you want to say something, Professor Tucker. you want to add something?
Thank you, Zainab, and thank you, Gallo. You very eruditely put the case for in Africa for Africa, and we look to Senegal as a leading light. You've done an absolutely amazing job there. We've come to be in Cape Town a regional training center after you, and we look to the expertise in Dakar and experience in Dakar. But that is right. So in sub-Saharan Africa, there are two regional training centers. There's Dakar and Cape Town. In Cape Town, the training center includes two universities and two training hospitals. We have one sponsored resident from the WFN at the moment on our rotation. And independently from the WFN, we are basically training neurologists from all over, from Uganda, Namibia, Tanzania, Kenya last year, so whole of sub-Saharan Africa. Obviously Anglophone countries, because we teach in English, and so there's a natural gravitation. But there's a huge amount to learn from the Francophone experience, which is, as Gallo points out, long established. I mean, in Cape Town, we might have been a little bit earlier, but not really much. I think it was immediately after the end of the Second World War, so around about 1947. So maybe a few years on Dakar, but they're great. They're great traditions in both areas. And like Gallo says, we're really pleased to see how local training has increased. An example is in the Anglophone countries, at least, is Zambia, where there is some collaboration with Johns Hopkins, and really an excellent training program which is now established there, that train at any one time, I think 4 or 5 neurologists. So, and that's been going for 4 or 5 years. They've had quite a few qualifications now. So we cover sub-Saharan Africa, Dakar and Cape Town, but it would be nice, as always, as Gallo says, to integrate further and to break down, as he says, the ridiculous language differentiation from a time which is long past and inappropriate now. So yeah, and so as Gallo says, they've been training epileptologists in Dakar, and we've now offering a 1-year epilepsy fellowship for newly qualified African neurologists, not South African and non-South African neurologists, which covers, I think, pretty much the same syllabus as Dakar. They learn electrophysiology, clinical epileptology, and also the basics of epilepsy surgery. So I think things are on up, and as Gallo says, over the last 10 years, they've been just great strides, and looking forward, I'm also very optimistic. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Toka. I don't know if you want to answer to this last question about the same question. How do we assess this information about training opportunities?
Sorry, Zainab, can you repeat the question, please? How can we?
How do we access information about training opportunities?
Okay, so there are a number of ways. I mean, Gallo hopefully will speak about Dakar, but these are World Federation of Neurology training sites. So the WFN site will have information about the funding and the fellowships. And then I'm sure Gallo is the same. I mean, people can contact me if they're interested. Funding is an issue. South Africa is more expensive than Dakar just to live, and I think the registration for an MAD is more expensive. But if candidates are interested, they can contact me, and I'm sure the same is Joe for her program and the Department of Neurology at Dakar.
No, well, I mean, Lawrence, Dakar is a very expensive city. Dakar is listed in the 15 most expensive city in the world. It's very expensive.
Really?
Very expensive. And for getting the information, people should go to the WFN site. They are publishing any offer of scholarship. There's not only offers for scholarship of training. There are also, and this is also the result of the Africa Initiative, for any Congress in the world, there are bursaries for young Africans for going and attend. There's also another program, which is a 1 month to 3 months, training that people can benefit from in Norway, in Turkey, in Germany, in France. All these information are in the WFN site. But by contacting you, Zainab, who is playing a greater and greater role, and I'm very proud and I congratulate you, they can get the information from you, because I know your generosity, your sense of organization, and we're following what you're doing, and we are very proud. And there's different sources, and I'm quite sure that Joe Wilsmith also can give you some information about other opportunities which are offered by International Child or International League for attending Congress and so on. So, going to a Congress is not just a travel, it's also an opportunity to meet great people and to build cooperation. But for the official information, very regularly put on the website of this organization and the great mother, which is WFN.
Okay. Thank you, Prof. John. Thank you, Prof. Docker. Now we will start with our second topic, which will be presented by Prof. Jo Wimshosset from Cape Town. She is the head of the Department of Child Neurology in Red Cross Hospital. She is also my current supervisor in my postgraduate program in clinical neurophysiology for pediatric. So she's a very impressive personality who is work very hardly. I'm very impressed by her, and I think she's a good example for women in neuroscience how to combine the both sides to provide. And so thank you, Prof. Do, for all your generosity of your teaching. And then you have the floor to talk us about the introduction of the African Pediatric Fellowship Program. Prof. Jo, you have the floor.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Jo Wilmshurst. I'm a child neurologist from Cape Town, South Africa, and I'm chair of the African Commission for the International League Against Epilepsy. And it's my great privilege to present to you during this EpiSkills 3 session. And I'm going to talk about the African Pediatric Fellowship Program. So just as the beginning, as clinicians, we should be focusing on prevention of child neurology diseases and of epilepsy. We should be cognizant in the importance of early recognition and intervention. We should be equipped with being able to perform early diagnosis and to provide good chronic care for our patients. But this can only happen with adequate training and education. And in order to understand and deliver good care, we need to have the skills to be able to perform research, to understand the epidemiology of our populations, and to audit our practice to make sure that it is the correct practice for our patients. And only with those in place are we positioned to advocate, lobby, and address the significant stigma faced by many of our patients. This is a model that was suggested to try and upskill health research capacity, and it translates very nicely into delivery care in general at a low middle income setting level. So it really highlights that when considering these issues, one should look at the macro institutional level, the operational level, but to be aware that it really only works if the individual level is equipped properly. So if the individual is given the skill set in order to deliver effective care, only with this in place and with the knowledge and the insight and the leadership capacity can they then have impact at an operational level. And then by changing things at an operational level and instituting this, they can then translate this into the macro and institutional level with sustainable change. So what do we understand are the challenges to upskill care for children with epilepsy in Africa? So this was some work that we performed around a decade ago, where a number of specialists from countries across Africa met and discussed the challenges for delivering care for children with neurological diseases in general, as well as a specific focus on epilepsy. And at that stage, we got information from 34 countries, and the messages that came through, not surprisingly, were that there were problems with resources, education, training, and how one innovates and how one needs to innovate in the African setting, where often the challenges are quite unique. But the messages that came through repeatedly, the strongest areas that they felt would result in the most changes surrounded education and training, and that education needed to be promoted not just at the tertiary level, but also at the primary and community level, and how we really should be embedding our teaching far more into an undergraduate point of entry. And then for training, that training didn't really just talk about specialists at a doctor level, but also nurses, ancillary workers, and technologists to really make a change. So of that data, when we collected it, we looked at how many child neurologists there were practicing or delivering care for children with neurological diseases in the continent. And for the 34 countries, what we found was this equated to a population of 927 million. And there were only 148 clinicians practicing in the field of child neurology. And this equated to a median of 0.01 per 100,000 population. So roll on 2022, and we've extended the study and repeated it, and got data from 53 countries now. Slightly depressingly, the figures are only marginally better, as you'll see here, and I've tried to parallel them across on the lines for you to see. But what it comes down to is that for a population of 1.37 billion, there are 324 child neurologists, and doing the maths, this equates to a median of 0.01 per 100,000 as a population. So unfortunately, we haven't really moved forward at this point, and in-country training is only available in 11 of those countries. So there's clearly a huge need here. So this is work that's in progress that we'll hopefully be publishing later this year through the International Child Neurology Association. And this was the heat map that's coming out of this data, and you can see that the areas with the least coverage of child neurologists are indeed Africa and Asia. WHO has also done some significant work looking at the need for neurological coverage in healthcare workers, and combining the data from their second edition report in 2017, they identified that of a neurological workforce looking at adult neurologists, child neurologists, and neurosurgeons, you can see immediately that the worst coverage is indeed in Africa and in low and low middle income settings, which is representative of most African countries. So this really supports the data that we found and really highlights that it's not just a problem for child neurology. So how do we support training? So most training traditionally has been based overseas, and this unfortunately leads to this wonderful term, the brain drain. So these incredibly skilled and motivated clinicians go abroad, get amazing training, and they don't come back. Or if they do, they don't stay. So the African Pediatric Fellowship Program was rolled out in 2008. This is strategic workforce development aimed to strengthen pediatric healthcare for Africa in Africa. And the aim is to build a generation of clinicians, educators, and leaders who are equipped to transform child health on the African continent. And that's through strategic clinical training of pediatric specialists and subspecialists from Africa. There's post-fellowship support development, which is critical in how the program operates, with collaboration with alumni and their centers to develop specialist and subspecialist training across the continent. So the aim is to build this network, which we're already seeing happening. So the trainees to come, and they don't just train as clinicians, they are equipped as educators, researchers, advocates, leaders, collaborators, as well as clinicians. So the program has been running now for about 14 years, and there's over 200 fellows that have either trained or in training, not just in child neurology, but across general pediatrics and diverse subspecialties. There's around a 90% retention rate at 1 and 5 years, which is unprecedented, and strong partnerships across 14 countries in Africa. And this is what I alluded to earlier. So they don't just train in child neurology. They will train in whatever area is deemed as needed by the center that's referring the trainees. So we've got diverse areas, and we will train in whatever is requested. And you can see here the focus on pediatric neurology, developmental pediatrics, and then quite excitingly, a takeoff which has been happening in clinical technology. So you're wondering what's happened in child neurology. Well, we've had 13 trainees that have either trained or are in training across 9 countries. And you might think, that's not very many. How much difference could they make? They are amazing. So this is Dr. Robert Sabunya. He finished in 2019. He's from Uganda. He completed his master's. He went straight back and hit the ground running to set up services in neurology, especially focusing on epilepsy, which he realized was one of the greatest areas of need. He immediately started identifying capacity for multidisciplinary services, and he's been building EEG skills. And he's been awarded the Bernard de Souza Award by the Child Neurology Society of North America in 2021. Dr. Kidjo, you will have heard of him today, and he finished with us in 2015 with his master's, and likewise identified multidisciplinary care as a key area to improve care delivery for his patients, as well as really taking over the EEG service and rejigging it from there being nothing before. He's supervising local masters. He's a member of the African Commission and a member of the International Child Neurology Association, as well as being involved in multiple international collaborative research projects. And he's been awarded the Bernard de Souza Award as well. And then Charles Hammond from Ghana, likewise completed his master's. He was prolific when he was working with us with multiple publications. He's also a member of various task forces of the International League Against Epilepsy, and has been a lead for postgraduate studies in Komfo-Anokye Teaching Hospital, where he's returned to work in Kumasi. He's established EEG services as well as developing educational services, and also getting the Bernard de Souza Award. You see a common theme here. And then Pauline Samia was the first trainee in child neurology that we had in our service, and was really the light bulb moment for me for not just how amazing these doctors are, but also how exciting collaborating across Africa could be. She also did her master's, and she's at the moment in the middle of a PhD. She has taken on national leadership roles, including within the Kenyan Pediatric Association. She remains a member of the Pediatric Commission for the International League Against Epilepsy, and is also serving on the board of the International Child Neurology Association. She's been integral as part of the group developing standalone pediatric neurology curriculum training in Kenya. She's acted as chair of her department, and she's also founder member of the East African Academy of Childhood Disability. And when she went back, she realized that they needed more child neurologists, even before they could set up in-house training. And in fact, sent Dr. Keita Yeki to train with us, who's completed and has also returned to increase the critical mass in Kenya. So this handful of clinicians give you an illustration of how powerful they can be and what they can do. And all of the group have been integral in lobbying for better access to care, including anti-seizure medications, forming phenomenal international collaborations with key groups, being involved in significant research exercises, establishing services which were really not functional before, becoming involved in multidisciplinary care, which is quite a unique practice in Africa, and embedding themselves in education programs, both at an undergraduate and a postgraduate level, and really becoming the ethos of what the APFP is all about, which is where the trainees become the trainers. So we don't function in silos, and the APFP has a sister organization which trains nurses. And then under the APFP, we also have a bubble for training rehabilitation specialists. And the area, as I alluded to, that we're working on next is promoting technologists. And we recently had a specialist, Shem Oshengi, who's a neurophysiology technologist, spent 6 months with us. He's from Kenya. He's now gone back, and he's basically set up and got services running in Nairobi, but remains in contact with us with 2 weekly internet communications. So where is this program going? Where is the African Pediatric Fellowship Program going? So as we had hoped, our alumni are becoming leaders. We're seeing critical numbers that are now enabling in-house training to become established, with Kenya being a prime example. But collaborations don't just remain within our particular group, that we're actually collaborating and working with other countries as we're seeing in-house training becoming stronger. And Zambia had already set up in-house training through other collaborations, but we're working with them now. We still need to train more trainees in the full curriculum to get that critical mass up and to enable centres to then be able to start in-house training. We want to encourage collaborations beyond South Africa. And in fact, mentors from overseas is great. Just please don't take our trainees away. Come visit us, spend time with us. So developing more co-funding opportunities is also incredibly important. One example is that one of the trainees we have with us at the moment from Zimbabwe is part of a project where we're hoping to upskill child neurology capacity in Zimbabwe. And that has only been possible by the various child neurology associations of the world coming together and raising the funds to promote and support that training. And we know that there are many other areas of support that we can provide. And COVID has taught us that really there should be no barriers, and the internet can actually work phenomenally well to promote training. So EEG teaching, we're involved, as I said, in these 2 weekly teaching sessions. They happen online, but we also do face-to-face teaching. Short study exposure can always be beneficial. And so remote and on-site support remains incredibly important. So I just want to say thank you, and I hope you've enjoyed this presentation. And I'm always open to have further discussions about the APFP. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation. We appreciate it a lot. You have a question and to a station from Gambia again. The figures are the same for both child and adult neurologists. It takes years to train neurologists for children and adults living with epilepsy. Now, is there any research or guideline for a risk assessment-based diagnosis that can be adapted by non-specialist healthcare workers in countries like the Gambia, similar to NICE guideline in the UK? You have an answer for him.
So there's two, thank you, Zainab. There's two aspects to that. The first one is to say yes, sort of. So there's a project happening at the moment in Nigeria, in the northern part of Nigeria, where a group from Vanderbilt have been working very closely with the local neurologists to see whether they can develop a model where the primary healthcare workers can deliver epilepsy care. And at the moment, they're still analysing the results. What has come over from a lot of their work is the incredible morbidity faced just by adults and children as a whole. But I think we need to wait to see how that happens. But that program looks like it's got huge potential. And then some similar work was done in Zambia as well. And those were siloed groups who adapted some of the NHGAP guidelines and implemented them at a primary healthcare level. But I think what I would ask you to do, Dr. Jallo, is to hold on and wait until the end of the session, because our last speaker is Dr. Gagandeep Singh, who is actually going to cover specifically the question that you're asking, which is where the International League Against Epilepsy has directly implemented an epilepsy curriculum specifically for people at the primary healthcare level. And I think once that's rolled out and actually active, then we need to audit it and screen and find out, is it making a difference to healthcare? Is it viable? And can we actually sustainably structure it within our workforce delivery?
Thank you, Prof. Joe. I have personally a question for you. I found the APFP program amazing. It's something which seems to be unique in Africa. I think it's a great opportunity. In your presentation, you talk about the need of the certified pediatrician who has completed their training program. But in our side, the question of child neurologists is the concern of neurologists, which are adult neurologists. So if you are not pediatrician but you still interested by child neurology, can you join EPFP program through the language barrier also, because it's our concern in the French-speaking countries. All the neurologists, we have the same neurologists for adults and also children. So what we can do to be part of this adventure of EPFP? Thank you.
So if you're training in Cape Town, the entry point is pediatrics, but I would hate to think that we would put up barriers to anything that would subsequently lead to improvements in healthcare. Lawrence alluded to this as part of training. And actually Gallo as well, language is such a potential barrier, and we have tried to focus where people are either really comfortable at a postgraduate level in the language that they're learning in, because it just adds such an additional strain onto the environment and where they're actually practicing. So the language is one issue, but the actual entry point of your baseline qualification skills, I wouldn't see it as a limitation. I know that it would probably restrict us for getting you a postgraduate qualification because we wouldn't be able to register you for a master's, but that wouldn't stop us wanting to take you for training. And in fact, one of our colleagues from Zambia is with us now. Who's an adult neurologist, who's incredibly motivated and has specifically joined our department for bits of time to actually upskill in key areas that she knows will help her when she goes back to practice. So one of the lessons we've learned with the APFP is not to be restrictive, that we actually have to be as inclusive as possible and to find ways around what the referring centres identify as an area for training and an area that we need to be working on.
Thank you, Prof. So let me introduce you the third speaker, which not need yet a normal presentation introduction, because Prof. Joe has talked about him in her presentation. Is Dr. Kija from Tanzania. He's Dr. Kija is a senior lecturer at Muhez, where he trains undergraduate and postgraduate students, provide clinical care and conduct research. His main research area includes childhood onset epilepsy, neurodevelopmental disorder, including autism and cerebral palsy. Dr. Kija is an executive member of International Child Neurology Association and a board member of International League Against Epilepsy. So thank you a lot, Dr. Kija, and let's talk about your topic, which is pediatric epilepsy training process. You have the floor, Dr. Kija.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Edward Kija. I am a pediatric neurologist from the Department of Pediatrics and Child Health at the Muhimbili University of Health and Allied Sciences in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. And this evening, I'll be talking about the pediatric epilepsy training, a training program that we have been rolling out here in Tanzania for the past 6 years. So the overview of my talk, briefly, I will introduce what is pediatric epilepsy training, or PET. I'll briefly cover the PET training formats from its original format to the current formats. And then I'll be talking about the international PET, which is the PET training that is conducted outside the United Kingdom. And then I'll be talking about the feedback from the attendees of the PET training, and then I'll be providing my conclusions. So what is PET? So PET, or Pediatric Epilepsy Training, it's a series of 1 to 2 day courses that was originally that was designed by the British Pediatric Neurology Association in the United Kingdom back in 2004, and the implementation of the program started in 2005. The BPNA designed the PET training in order to bridge a gap in the standards of care for children and young adults who are presenting with seizures and epilepsies. And it was also designed in order to cover the gap in the diagnosis between epileptic and non-epileptic events, which was seen as a challenge towards the care of children and young adults presenting with seizures. The main target audience for the PET training are the pediatricians, the medical officers, and emergency care professionals, as well as nurses, the first responders who are attending a child presenting with seizures and epilepsy at the first encounter. Since its initiations back in 2005, PET has reached over 20 countries globally. So initially it was only the UK, but eventually it has been rolled out all the way to Australia, to India, Myanmar, and in Africa. In Africa, it has covered over 9 countries now. They are already in Ghana, Kenya, Sudan, Mauritius, Namibia, South Africa, Tanzania, and Uganda. And there are plans to translate the pediatric epilepsy training into French and Portuguese for the training to be conducted in French and Portuguese speaking countries respectively. So the pediatric epilepsy training has been endorsed by the International League Against Epilepsy as an effective and sustainable format to teach epilepsy. As we all know, one of the main targets of the ILAE, or the objectives of the ILAE, is to improve the care of children through improving teaching or through educational programs for epilepsy. It is also a safe standard epilepsy care practice for all healthcare professionals across all levels, from primary, secondary, and tertiary level, as it provides a practical and pragmatic approach towards epilepsy care. ILAE has been supporting pediatric epilepsy training globally through financial support, as well as providing technical expertise. So the PET training, there are 3 different types of PET trainings. There is a PET 1, PET 2, and PET 3. PET 1 is a 1-day course which intends to cover initial, which intends to cover patients who are presenting initially with seizures and epilepsies, as well as the care of an ongoing care for a child who is presenting with epilepsy. It provides the attendees with the skills and techniques for various other common paroxysmal disorders which occurs in children and infants, as well as young adults, and is intended to equip the attendees with skills to work in an acute setting as well as in a community setting. The PET 2, on the other hand, is a 2-day course, which is a build-up from the PET 1, which intends now to cover the aspects of epilepsy in infants and young children. It provides a more extensive diagnostic and differential diagnostic approach for children who are presenting with epilepsies. The PET 3, again, is a build-up from the PET 1 and PET 2, which again covers the aspect of epilepsy in older children and adults by equipping the attendees with the diagnostic and management approaches for children presenting with epilepsies. So what are the format? So the original format of the PET, when it was originally designed by the BPNA, was a physical training where all the attendees will gather in one venue and the training will be conducted. But following the outbreak of COVID, that approach has been, the PET training has evolved. And now there's a virtual training in which the attendees will be at their own location and the facilitator will be at a different location, and the training will be conducted purely 100% virtually. But there's also a hybrid approach where some of the programs will be done virtually and some of the training sessions will be done physically. All these training programs have been quite successful and has been achieving similar results from the original physical training. The training itself comprises of standardized didactic lectures, which are provided for the whole group. And then the participants will be divided into smaller groups of 6 to 8 attendees for an interactive workshop groups, where more extensive discussions will be done between the attendees and the faculty. The materials that are used are standardized globally, and the faculty that are involved in the training all undergo training to become faculties, and to ensure that the training is conducted at the same high standard wherever the PET training is being conducted, where it's been conducted in Tanzania or in Australia or in Myanmar, the training will be conducted in exactly the same manner. The faculties that are involved in the PET training are pediatricians and pediatric neurologists, who, like I said, will all have undergone a training to become PET faculties. Before the training, all the attendees will be receiving pre-reading course materials to prepare for the PET training. And during the training, they will also receive a course book, which will be used during the training and post the training as a reference for the training that they have received. So after the quite success of the PET training in UK and rolling out in other parts of the countries, in 2016, PET was rolled out in Africa, where the first training was conducted. 24 local faculty, that is African faculty, were trained back in 2016 in Cape Town, South Africa. And the first PET training was conducted in Cape Town, utilizing the African faculty who were trained by the UK-based faculty. The second training was conducted in Kisumu, Kenya, by the African faculty who were trained in Cape Town, and the training was quite successful. And subsequently, further training has been conducted by the African faculty in other countries of Africa. We expect further training to be conducted in other countries, and tentatively Zimbabwe and Zambia, the training will be done in 2023. So following the success of the African faculty, further African faculty were trained in 2017. And this is the picture of the Tanzanian faculty who were trained in Mombasa. The picture on top of the left, and then top right picture is a picture of a faculty, Tanzanian faculty who were trained in Mombasa, conducting a workshop now back in Dar es Salaam. And then below is one of the attendees receiving a certificate from a faculty, and this is the picture bottom right is the latest paid training that we conducted this year, this September. So what is the feedback from the attendees? So immediately after the training, all the attendees are given feedback forms to complete in order to see how they perceive the PET training and whether the PET training was useful and whether it met the expectations or the targets that the attendees expected from the training. So this is a summary of the results from these feedback form post-training. That is 95% would definitely recommend PET to a colleague, and 99% rated PET training as excellent or very good. 87% report the expectation were exceeded or fulfilled from the training. Now, attitudes towards practice, whether the PET training makes changes in practice. So 6 months following the training, the survey is conducted to all the attendees to see whether the training had made a difference in their routine day-to-day practice. And this is summary of the results from that 6-month survey that is conducted to the attendees. That is 85% report that they have improved in the ability to distinguish between epileptic and non-epileptic events. 82% report that they have improved history taking. 80% report PET has prompted them to try to improve the way clinical services are set up to support children with epilepsy. And 75% report they have made moderate or significant changes to their practice towards diagnosis and caring for children and young people with epilepsies. Further results, that 63 report they recognize more quickly when a patient needs to be referred to an expert, and 58% report they always provide first aid advice to parents and caregivers. 57% have reported improvement in the way they share the information, and 54% have introduced changes to services resulting in improvement in prolonged seizure management in their unit. And many have introduced improved teaching about epilepsy to parents and families, to their undergraduate colleagues, postgraduate colleagues, as well as professional colleagues. And I should say at this point that in Africa, the PET-1 training has the one which has been extensively rolled out. We have not yet started rolling teaching PET-2 and PET-3, but PET-1 has been quite successful in terms of improving care or improving care of children who are presenting with seizures and epilepsies. So in conclusion, PET training has been shown to be useful for improving care of children and young adults with seizures and epilepsies. It has been shown to be feasible and sustainable to teach healthcare professionals across the globe, as it provides safe and standard practice for epilepsy care. So thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Dr. Kija. Thank you very much for your presentation. We have not yet a question in the question for you, but I think it will come after and you can directly answer this question. Now, let's welcome our fourth presented speaker, which is Dr. Melody Asukile, an ex-IPFP student also. She make a great job about EEG training in Africa, and she have a lot of paper on this subject. So, Dr. Asukile, you have the floor to talk us about NACN. I think it's a National Association, Neurology Association, South Africa, UCT, which is University of Cape Town, and the WFN, World Federation of Neurology EEG Online program. So, Dr. Asukile, you have the floor. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for this amazing opportunity to share about our EEG Online training program. I'm a tutor on and the Research and Development Coordinator of the EEG Online course, and this is a brief outline of my talk. I want to start by talking about neurology and EEG training in Africa. As we all know, the number of neurologists in Africa are very few compared to high-income countries. And because of this, EEG analysis and interpretation are essential skills for neurologists in Africa. However, we've got very few training centers on the continent due to the low number of specialists. And so I think it's quite clear that the need for EEG training in Africa far exceeds the capacity of the available training centers. The map on the right was a survey done in about 2015 where it just asked how many neurologists were in the different countries. Though this has slightly improved, we could see that there were very low numbers at the time and very little information from most of the countries. So is web-based training a potential solution? So computer or web-based learning is the use of computer applications to aid in teaching. It could potentially allow for globally accessible and geographically independent medical education and training. Several studies actually support the benefits and non-inferiority of web-based and blended teaching methods. And these methods have been used for medical education, for example, in the teaching of physical examination, for ECG analysis, surgical techniques, and clinical sciences. But we have very little data about web-based EEG training. And so it's on this background that EEG Online was developed. And EEG Online was developed by the University of Cape Town in collaboration with the University of Pretoria and with support from the World Federation of Neurology. And the main aim was to bridge this gap in access to EEG teaching. The main target of the course is neurology residents in training, specialist neurologists who have an interest in improving their EEG analysis skills, and neurotechnologists. So what is EEG Online? So it is an intensive 6-month, part-time, 9-module web-based EEG learning program that you do completely by distance learning. It consists of 2 by 3-month courses. And so the first 3 months, you are taken through the basic principles of EEG. And then for the second 3 months, there's a clinical application of EEG. So there's a lot of illustrated text throughout the course, but the main emphasis is going through many different epochs, both normal and abnormal, to get you used to encountering and analyzing EEGs. And then you do get a certificate at the end of the course. So these are some of the features that we have on EEG Online. The first, as I talked about, is illustrative text. So in each module, you will get lecture notes about a certain topic, which will come with illustrations. And then something that's also quite innovative about this course are the interactive EEG epoch activities. So an EEG epoch is a snapshot of an EEG. And what these interactive EEG epoch activities do is that you have some text talking about the epoch that's been presented. And then you can see, though it's quite small, there's some colored text within there. So as you hover over or click on colored text, it then highlights what it's referring to on the epoch. And in that way, you get to interact with the epoch and you get to understand the different features that the tutor is referring to. And then we also have pre-recorded audio and video lectures. Some of these lectures are recorded in such a way as if you are reading an EEG over the shoulder with a specialist as you would normally do. So we'll have a specialist. So here we've got Dr. Lipan, for example, who scrolls through an EEG, and then he's speaking to the EEG and talking about the features of interest in that particular EEG. One aspect of this course that is really popular is the immediate feedback quizzes. So at the end of each module, you have 30 multiple choice EEG questions about that particular module. And so you go through these 30 epochs, you try and answer the questions. Once you submit, then you get feedback about each epoch, explaining what the correct answer was and highlighting the different features of that EEG. You are allowed to take the quiz as many times as you want during that period when the quiz is open. And so that way you can self-correct and learn through the different epochs. An additional feature we have is discussion forums. So again, on each module, after students or learners have been given some time to go through the material, the tutors will then post about 10 to 15 EEGs that the students then get to discuss and get feedback from the tutors throughout the course of the time that the discussions are open. And so how do we assess learners on EEG Online? So assessment is done in several ways, and one is through the login activity, how much of the course materials they're accessing, and through the self-assessment quizzes. The final grade, however, is what determines whether you pass the course or not, and this is determined by 3 final examinations at the end of the course. And if you get an average pass mark of 65%, you then qualify to get a certificate. So over the years, and this is up to 2021, we've had participants from all over the world. The stars really represent the distribution of where our learners are coming from. Majority, though, in terms of numbers, do come from sub-Saharan Africa. And so, as I mentioned, we don't have much data about whether EEG online teaching is effective. And so What I did for my Master of Medicine thesis is I evaluated the efficacy of an online learning tool for EEG teaching. So essentially evaluating EEG online. Is it actually effective in teaching the group of people that we want to teach? So the aim of our study was to determine the effectiveness of this 6-month interactive multimodal web-based EEG teaching program, which is EEG Online, in improving EEG analysis and interpretation skills for neurologists, neurology residents, and technologists, particularly in resource-limited settings. Our main target population was the neurology residents, specialized neurologists, and medical technologists who had enrolled on the course between June 2017 and June 2018. And the criteria is that they must have completed a pre-course and post-course multiple choice question test. So this is just a study flow of the project that I did. So we enrolled participants from 2017 and 2018. And so these participants who agreed to be part of the study, they took a pre-course 30-question multiple choice question test on EEGs. And then they also answered a pre-course survey. They then went on to have the course for the 6 months as described previously. And then at the end of the course, they wrote a similar post-course multiple choice question test and also answered surveys to gain their perceptions of how EEG analysis had changed before and after the course. This table just shows the baseline characteristics of our participants. So as you can see, majority of our participants were neurologists, about equal numbers were trainees and equal numbers were qualified. And majority, as I said, as we've seen generally from our course, over 90% of people who log on to the course are from Sub-Saharan Africa. So what did our study find? So our study actually showed really great results. So firstly, with regards to confidence, so this is on the graph on the right, refers to the pre-course survey and the post-course survey, where we asked them about their confidence in EEG analysis. And so we can see that there was significant increases in confidence in analyzing EEGs. And what was great is that this was also reflected when it came to gain of knowledge. And gain of knowledge we assessed through the pre and post-course multiple choice question tests. So from the pre-course test, we see that most of the learners were averaging about 44%, but after the course, they were averaging over 60%. And so this showed that there was both an increase in confidence and both an increase in knowledge in EEG analysis. What was also an interesting feature on our sub-analysis is that there was a large improvement in identification of normal features and artifacts. And we thought this was quite an important finding because it's important that when someone is reading an EEG, they're actually able to differentiate normal variants and artifacts from abnormal epileptiform discharges, because reporting a normal EEG as abnormal can have detrimental and long-term effects for the patient. So we thought this was really important and useful. Finally, we asked our participants about how satisfied they were with the course. So over 90% felt that it improved their EEG analysis skills. Over 85% felt that it improved their ability to analyze EEGs independently. At least 70% felt that it helped improve their ability to manage patients clinically. And almost all participants thought that EEG Online was a useful learning tool. So in conclusion, our study demonstrated that a multimodal online EEG teaching tool was effective in improving EEG analysis and interpretation skills. We think it is a useful supplement for EEG teaching, especially in resource-limited settings. So of course, in-person teaching still has a great role to play, but in our setting where we've got very few teachers and very little access to EEG teaching, we think this is a brilliant supplement. And it might not only apply to resource-limited settings, but can be extended to high-income countries too. I think another thing that came out from our study is that if we're able to develop programs for EEG teaching, such as this online, we should be thinking about other subjects or even other topics in epilepsy that we can teach online so that we expand access to teaching for people in our region. And I think one thing as well that came out is that The era of COVID-19 has taught us that we need to be diverse in our thinking about how we're going to teach and how we're going to provide healthcare when we're faced with pandemics such as the one we did during that time. And I think web-based learning programs is one way of overcoming this. I just want to thank our EEG Online team. And so in the picture, we've got Dr. Lipan on the left and Dr. Taka, myself, Professor Eastman, Dr. Shao Vilyun, who's a cardiologist, but also very involved in online teaching and was a great source of guidance throughout the course and throughout the study. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Dr. Asukuli, for your presentation. We are looking for the question from you, and then we can answer them after. Now, let's welcome our next presenter, our next speaker, which is Veena Kandeh. Veena is a senior neurophysiologist at the Red Cross Hospital. She is my current supervisor for my EEG training. So she make a great job with her child EEG, how to record, how to identify artifacts, and she generously transfer her knowledge to other people. And I have the chance to have this opportunity. So thank you, Veena, for all your generosity. Veena, you have the floor for your presentation about access to pediatric EEG training in Africa. Thank you, Veena.
Thank you for joining me here this evening. I'm here today to talk about my role in pediatric EEG training in Africa. My name is Veena Kandeh, and I am a senior clinical pediatric neurophysiology technologist at the Red Cross War Memorial Children's Hospital, which is the largest children's hospital in sub-Saharan Africa. The neurophysiology unit is the only dedicated pediatric unit in sub-Saharan Africa, and it services over 3,000 children per year across the Western Province of South Africa and far afield. The service performs extended studies, including video EEG telemetry and invasive monitoring as part of pre-surgical workup. It is the only government center that offers this facility for children, and I am one of 2 technologists who supports the service. During my time working in the neurophysiology department over the last 14 years, I have taken on teaching the clinical neurology trainees in EEG skills and knowledge. Many of these trainees have returned to settings across Africa where there are limited resources, and typically they're the only person with the ability to perform and interpret pediatric EEGs. This has led to me compiling a teaching curriculum and rolling this out both as an online course, but also interwoven into the University of Cape Town postgraduate diploma in basic EEG skills and management of children with epilepsy. This has subsequently led me to further my studies and pursue my PhD. The aim of my PhD project is exploring and understanding access to pediatric electroencephalography in Africa, and through this, developing a tool to improve the ability to perform and deliver the service. The PhD will be done via publications. We previously looked at whether an online handbook was a viable tool to promote pediatric EEG interpretation in the African setting. The online tool was successfully developed, and since then, 112 participants have done the training, we concluded that foundation skills were needed. This was described in the article, Training Doctors in Basic EEG, Analysis of a Learning Tool Relevant to Resource-Limited Settings. In 2019, we did a pilot training of the handbook with Shem Ucheng from Kenyatta University. Shem was our first pioneer as a clinical technology fellow, a new arm of the African Pediatric Fellowship Program. Shem returned home to Kenya to lead the neuroclinical diagnostic team in their new university, training and research hospital. This has led to the NeuroChat, a bi-weekly EEG review and training sessions with doctors locally and from high and low income countries. Dr. Zainab Kone is our first graduate of the postgraduate diploma course, which I have mentioned previously, in basic EEG interpretation and management of children with epilepsy. Dr. Kone formally graduates at the end of the year and completed all modules. There are various curricula internationally, so it's important to understand the curriculum content, what has been critiqued, and what the quality is like. Well, what can we say about that? We found similarities in curricula with key concepts taught, and pediatric EEG training virtually non-existent in some EEG training programs. We subsequently published the article, Evaluation of EEG Training Curricula for Non-Specialist Clinicians, a systematic qualitative review. We then wanted to see how many children had access to an EEG and who was performing the EEG. It was also important to understand who read the EEG and whether they had any pediatric EEG interpretation training. So, we sent a survey to our colleagues in sub-Saharan Africa who see pediatric patients. The research indicated that there was demand for more access to pediatric neurophysiologists and EEG training among doctors working with epilepsy in sub-Saharan Africa, with the need to expand training beyond sub-Saharan Africa. This was outlined in the article, The Landscape of Electrophysiology Services for Children in Sub-Saharan Africa. So what's in the future? We want to understand how this online teaching influences patient care and practice. The handbook has been used worldwide in 49 countries. We are reviewing the data and awaiting submission. As a further step, we would like to develop an understanding of existing training guidelines for electrophysiology. We aim to access information from heads of departments in neurology and neurophysiology. This will be done from high-income and resource-limited countries. In conclusion, we aim to develop a pedagogical model that would be effective, viable, and sustainable in the African setting. Our curriculum content and teaching methods aim to be accessible and applicable within Africa and aimed to strengthen pre-existing local skills. The EEG teaching supports child neurology trainees from South Africa and other African countries via the African Pediatric Fellowship Program, promoting the establishment of well-run pediatric services in their countries and ensuring better care for children with epilepsy in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dina. we have a question for you after your presentation. Someone asked about their clinic. Our clinic is being supported by a charitable organization, which is EEG. There is only one neurologist in the Gambia. Can registered nurses with the passion for epilepsy care currently support EEG recording service? Apply for EEG online. I think this question is maybe for Melody. So if you can give some answer to this question. Thank you.
Sorry, Zainab, I couldn't quite hear the question again. Could you repeat it?
Okay. The question is, can registered nurses with the passion for epilepsy care currently supporting EEG recording service apply for the EEG online course?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so typically the course is the entry criteria is a trainee technologist or a neurology registrar, pediatric or adult. But like Joe says, this isn't cast in stone, and we don't like turning good candidates away. So we have neuroscientists sometimes who apply, who are not clinicians, in fact, and they're academic electroencephalographers. And so it's really the best thing to do is to apply and see whether they get accepted. So the normal procedure is there's an application form to be filled in, and if you are a technologist, a trainee technologist, a neurologist, a psychiatrist, because many psychiatrists in Africa, as you know, look after patients with epilepsy, or you have a particular interest, you're a doctor with a particular interest in epilepsy, you normally get on quite easily. And then if you, if it's something like a scientist or someone doing a PhD or a master's who's not a clinician, they have to motivate, and they usually get on, So we don't have exclusion criteria. We have inclusion criteria. Yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Okay, thank you, Professor. Now, let us welcome Prof. Igmar Blumke from the University of Erlangen, Institute of Neuropathology in Germany. He will talk to us about showcase of academic resources. So, Prof. Blumke, you have the floor.
Hello everybody, my name is Ingmar Blümke and I'm the chair of the Education Council of the International League Against Epilepsy. The Council's duty is to oversee and orchestrate all learning activities within the global ILAE constituency, but also to develop a structured learning portfolio with 21st century and state-of-the-art learning tools. As you may have already heard, the International League has published a curriculum for epileptology consisting of domains, competencies, and learning objectives. Each epileptologist should acquire at some point of their career development. We also have developed a curriculum for primary care, which was published online with open access just last week and is available, therefore, for your further reading. Our current work is to create from the scratch teaching material targeting all of the learning objectives specified in the International League's curriculum. It is important to know that all of this teaching content is presented on the ILAE Academy, which is an e-learning platform and represents a virtual campus for all of you seeking for continuous medical education in epileptology. I will now take you on a short journey introducing the ILAE Academy website. It has a layered structure organizing the increasing body of content, of teaching content, into levels as explained and specified by the curriculum, such as level 1 for beginners in epileptology and level 2, the proficiency level. After this presentation, I am happy to take questions. Please go to the ILAE Academy website and you will find the address below. Here in the upper right is the login button. So either you have already created your account and you can log in, or you have to create your own account, and this is for free. And you see here, if this is your first time, you create your new account. So you have to accept the privacy policy, you have to submit, fill in the spaces. All those with the red asterisk are mandatory. And as I said before, this account is for free. So assuming that you have now your account, you log in. And this is the landing page. So let us have a look first in the lower part of the website. Here, the Learn More. Here's where you find all the valuable information to learn about the Academy. Here are some features, some video tutorials, how the different courses work. And here is what's new this week, what's coming up, and so forth. We click here and you will see a lot of text that we cannot read together today. I invite you to log in to the Academy and help yourself. However, here is again a link to the competency-based curriculum that I have mentioned before, and here is the learning path of the learner through level 1, then the self-assessment coming to level 2, and then going on to level 3. However, this last part isn't active yet. We have the VAREPA courses on EEG and MRI, and this is well established. And the level 1 is fully functional, the self-assessment is fully functional, and the level 2, the proficiency level, is in creation. We have a number of courses already available. But however, I suggest everybody to start with the level 1. The level 1 exists of learn from cases. So we have 15 common epilepsies, present the patients, and we guide you through the diagnostic procedures to reach to a conclusion and then make the correct decision about the treatment. A second pillar are our e-brain sessions, and I will show you an example in a minute. And the third one on this level is histopathology in a nutshell. This is a very short tutorial on major structural lesions in the brain and how the neurons and the glial cells and so react to these lesions. We are still on the website. We are still live on the website. Here's just a more detailed listing of the content of level 1. And this is the fee package. The full subscription to level 1 would be for lower middle income countries, $50. You can apply for bursary, and then you have to pay $25 to have 1 year full access to level 1. I think this is a very fair price, and it's a policy of the International League to not give anything for free. You have to understand we need that revenue also to maintain the website and to pay all the people who are helping us, the staffers. So myself, I do not gain a single dollar of this. So my work is for free. I'm a volunteer to the International League. This is the level 2 structure. This is a proficiency level. We have a common trunk that is mandatory for all learners. The case-based learning modules. Again, we have an MRI reading tool, we have the histopathology tutorials, and we have other case-based e-learnings on rare diseases and complex epilepsies and so forth. And in addition, we offer courses on semiology, on EEG, on neuroimaging, anti-seizure medication, and comorbidities. So I will now continue to give you an example of one of our case-based e-learning modules, and I'm very happy to take questions after my presentation. In level 1, you will meet patients with common epilepsies and epileptic syndromes. Each patient is presented as interactive case where you have to achieve a final diagnosis and first-line drug treatment using recommended diagnostic procedures. You will see that the instructional design of each course will meet your expectations as being testified by our many previous students. I am now guiding you through this one case-based e-learning tool as an example. Of the advanced interactivity that we will provide additional information during your learning path, in particular addressing pitfalls and errors in order to not harm the patient, but having a cost-efficient and state-of-the-art diagnostic approach leading to the appropriate first-line treatment. You will also earn a total of 37.5 CME credits for accomplishing all of the case modules. And this calculates for approximately 40 learning hours. The second pillar of this level 1 are 26 selected e-learning modules from our eBrain series, each taking approximately 20 minutes of your time. Accomplishing the level 1 certificate will empower you to access our new level 2. the proficiency level. If you believe your knowledge in epileptology is already beyond level 1, you need to pass our self-assessment test. Please be aware that you not only have to answer the 30 questions, but also need to have high enough confidence to pass the test. Welcome to our new Level 2 teaching portfolio. In this level, you will find a rich environment of self-tutored courses, including EEG and MRI reader, adaptive learning formats, tutorials, and semiology quizzes. But you also have the opportunity to blend your e-learning experience with live and in-person sessions, such as our summer schools, PET teaching courses in pediatric epileptology, and teaching sessions at ILAE congresses to advance your continuous professional development in epileptology. Please enjoy the learning experience with the ILAE Academy and let us know your thoughts and comments at any time. Hope to seeing you soon at the ILAE Academy virtual campus. And I'm happy now to take questions. Bye.
Thank you very much for Bloomsday. I think we are waiting for your question. Now we have our last speaker, which is Prof. Gagandeep Singh, which is the head of the Department of Neurology, Dayanand Medical College and Hospital at Ludna and Hammond, associate professor also at the UCL Institute of Neurology. So, Prof. Singh will talk us about primary healthcare worker epilepsy curriculum. Prof. Singh, you have the floor. Thank you.
Good afternoon, good evening. It's such a great pleasure to be virtually in the midst of friends and colleagues from Africa and to be able to present, if you allow me to share my screen, the International League Against Epilepsy, Primary Care Epilepsy Curriculum. Ladies and gentlemen, just to give you a background, I would like to take you to the 1980s to Malawi. And we have Dr. Watts here, who came into Malawi to work in a Christian mission hospital. And in this paper in the BMJ, she describes the state of treatment of epilepsy. She wrote, in Malawi, people with epilepsy travel from one traditional healer to another in search of treatment, which usually comprised of a concoction from roots, which could induce purging and vomiting, and could also be used in the water used for bathing. And bathing, mind you, was not done at the usual place, but in a rubbish pit, perhaps to emphasize the kind of discrimination and stigma that was prevalent at that time. So, ladies and gentlemen, when Dr. Watts set up epilepsy clinic in our hospital, there weren't many takers, at least initially for the first 3 months. And then the numbers increased. There was a tipping point and the numbers increased. So what was the secret of Dr. Watts' success, or what were the strategies that she used? Well, she publicized the availability of treatment. She spent a great amount of time educating both the patients as well as the staff members. Well, there were no other doctors. She used a simple regimen comprising of phenobarbital, perhaps the only epilepsy medicine available at that time, but ensured that there was an adequate stock of medicines which were provided free of cost, and that there were monthly review clinics, and ensured consistency so that the patient always saw the same healthcare worker each time. Ladies and gentlemen, we all know that there is a huge treatment gap for epilepsy in many countries in Africa and Asia. This paper where we studied temporal trends in the epilepsy treatment gap, the gap has narrowed in the last decade. But as you can see, there are still many countries and locations within Africa as well as Asia where the treatment gap is extremely wide, as in excess of 70% in many of these locations. And to compound this wide treatment gap, we have a near or complete absence of epilepsy specialists. So in comparison to 9 neurologists per 100,000 population in Europe, you have only 0.1 per 100,000 in Africa and 0.3 per 100,000 in Southeast Asia. So in the absence of specialists, the onus of treatment of epilepsy actually falls on the primary care providers. And in any case, in most places, the primary care providers are the point of first contact for people with epilepsy. So I was actually going through this, the ILAE website, and I came across this large number of projects and initiatives in Africa. And as you can see that the emphasis in all these projects across many countries in Africa is basically primary care for epilepsy. In India, this is a picture of Dr. Raju, who is in charge of a primary healthcare center in South India. We visited Dr. Raju and asked him, what are the epilepsy medicines available in your center? To which Dr. Raju replied, well, we have phenytoin and we have injectable diazepam. So we asked him, what about the rest? He says, well, we see 2 to 3 to 4 people with epilepsy every month. And therefore that does not justify having many other epilepsy medicines in our stock. We asked Dr. Raju how confident he was in managing epilepsy. He smiled and replied, well, epilepsy is a bit complicated. It's not like managing heart disease, anemia, and doing deliveries. It's not simple like that. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to emphasize that epilepsy is easily treatable with simple regimes, cost-effective medicines. There is, of course, a wide treatment gap, as already emphasized. Epilepsy has a number of consequences, including a 3 times increased risk of premature mortality, injury, and not in the least, a number of psychosocial consequences. And why primary care for epilepsy? Well, primary care brings treatment closer to home. It's quicker, it's cost-effective, it can be integrated within a complete healthcare package within the primary care setting, with a lot of emphasis on prevention, and certainly this reduces the need for specialists. This primary care wheel, or wheel for strengthening primary care for epilepsy, or for that matter, any other medical condition, there are a number of things that can be done. But I think most important is to build up the capacity of primary healthcare providers to diagnose and treat epilepsy. And that is where the ILAE primary care epilepsy curriculum figures. There are, however, a number of challenges, not in the least that primary care doctors manage large number of patients in their clinics, huge numbers. They are often inundated. And then there is a large number of medical conditions, medical, surgical, obstetric conditions that they have to manage. In order to learn, they do not follow the principles of adult learning for primary care are completely different. They're not pedagogical. They need very practical tips and clinical tips. So that is one of the major challenges. And the title of this paper that I have shown in this slide says it all. Primary care in sub-Saharan Africa often is nurse-led. And we have to factor that in designing the ILAE primary care epilepsy curriculum. There are indeed a large number of countries, all with different policies, with different resources, with different approaches, and therefore we cannot follow the principle one size fits all. So with all this in mind, the ILAE Educational Council envisaged a primary care epilepsy curriculum. We actually began in the BC And mind you, BC does not mean before Christ, but before Corona. So that was December 2019. And we went through a series of steps, which began with needs assessment based on literature review and expert opinion, identification of core competencies, elucidation of learning objectives, and very important, feedback and refinement, feedback guiding refinement. And this is the final product, which is, I can assure you, completely evidence-based and consensus-driven. The ILAE primary care epilepsy curriculum has 6 domains: diagnosis, counseling, pharmacological treatment, referral, emergencies, and comorbidities. There are 85 learning objectives, and this might appear a bit daunting. But mind you, these are not merely learning objectives. They actually comprise of a body of knowledge or the basic skill set that is required in order to manage epilepsy in primary care. And mind you, excluded from the curriculum are domains such as epilepsy surgery, management of anti-seizure medication drug levels, and so on and so forth. So let me take you in the next set of slides quickly through the various domains. The diagnosis of epilepsy, it's important to understand and know what are the current ILAE definitions for seizures, epilepsy, and status epilepticus, the main causes of acute symptomatic seizures, focal and generalized epilepsies, how to interpret semiology from the history, how to do a good clinical examination in someone with epilepsy, and what basic tests, not referring to EEG, but what basic tests are required and how to order these tests in people with epilepsy. Counseling is extremely important. It should be culturally sensitive and in the local context. But then we also need to keep in mind that there are special populations, and counseling should encompass these special populations. For instance, women with epilepsy, elderly people with epilepsy, the parents of children with epilepsy, and people with psychogenic non-epileptic events. Pharmacological treatment comprises of initiating treatment, basic knowledge of drugs, and then follow-up of treatment, leading on to either remission or drug resistance, as the case may be. And in which case, I mean drug resistance, we need to think of referral. And referral is a very important function of primary care health providers. It's important not just to refer patients, but to know how to triage the referral, which means which are the conditions in situations in which the referral has to be emergent or urgent, and in which cases can it be routine. And it's extremely important to communicate the need for referral both to the specialists to whom the referral is made, as well as to the patients and the caregivers. Emergencies are extremely important. I always believe you treat an emergency well, you retain the patient for life. And emergencies, mind you, just do not include status epilepticus. In epilepsy, there can be a number of other emergencies, including drug toxicities and intoxications, psychosis, suicidality, severe skin reactions, including Stevens-Johnson syndrome, and they all need to be managed appropriately. Comorbidities are often neglected and ignored, and comorbidities include both psychiatric comorbidities and other somatic comorbidities. And packages such as the WHO MHCAP has very good packages for management, both for epilepsy as well as psychiatric conditions. The strength of our primary care epilepsy curriculum was the feedback that we accrued across a global constituency. And this included both primary care providers as well as specialists. And these graphs depict the rating of various competencies by primary care providers as well as specialists. And these graphs actually compare the ratings of various competencies according to country income status. So this was immensely helpful to us. It is also important to understand what are the existing resources for primary care epilepsy education. And we have some very good existing resources. For instance, we have the Pediatric Epilepsy Training programs of the British Pediatric Neurology Association. We, of course, have the WHO MH-GAP, which has been widely implemented in many countries. We have the PAC, which is in South Africa, the Practical Approach to Care Kit. In our country, in India, we are developing a package which is based on the ILAE primary care curriculum. And in Latin America, there is ILAE-based e-initiative for primary care management for epilepsy. Ladies and gentlemen, to conclude, the ILAE primary care epilepsy curriculum is here for you to read and to follow. I can assure you it is entirely evidence-based, consensus-driven, and has been refined feedback. What is now required is wide dissemination, and we seek your help and engagement in that. Adoption of suitable learning platforms, the development of its content and educational packages, and a continuous evolution through feedback and refinement. Ladies and gentlemen, the ILAE primary care epilepsy curriculum is for you to read and to disseminate. But I must thank all the members of the ILAE primary care task force, including Dr. Ingmar Blomke from Germany, who heads the Educational Council and who was the driving force behind all our activities, but also included Patricia Braga, Jamie Carisosa from South America, Dr. Mendirata from India, Dr. Tricky from Tunisia, Dr. Sam Webb, who was the president of the ILAE at that time, and of course Joe, who was who from South Africa, and Priscilla, who was the ILAE staff support. So many thanks to all of them, and we hope that you would read. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for seeing. We have an old question for you. The question was about in the Gambia, the figures are the same. Both child and adult neurologists take years to train neurologists for children and adults living with epilepsy. Now, is there any research guidelines for a risk assessment based diagnosis that can be adapted by non-specialist healthcare workers in countries like the Gambia, similar to NICE guideline in the UK? You have an answer for him?
Sorry, is that?
The person wants to know if there is any research guideline for a risk of a risk assessment based diagnosis that can be adapted by non-specialist healthcare workers in countries like Gambia, similar to the NICE guidelines in the UK.
Sorry, this was about the NICE guidelines, and what are the other guidelines? Sorry.
If there is something look like a NICE guideline, which can be used in the low-income countries.
Yeah, yes, I think the NICE guidelines are really good, and I think all over the world we tend to follow the NICE guidelines. The problem is, you know, there are many different locations, many different countries with different healthcare systems, with different economies, with different approaches, and different resources. So you know, I think it's very important to adapt whatever guidelines that we have to the local context, and adapt and develop local guidelines. So that is something that really needs to be done. Yes, there can be an umbrella guideline. NICE guidelines are excellent. I think there is no doubt about it. We all follow them. We all read them. And whenever they are updated, we always look up to them. But the important thing is, you know, every country is different. Every place is different. Every situation is different. And we need to adapt according to that. You know, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. Thank you, Prof. I'm completely agree with you. I have a question for you myself. It's about your task force. You have designed a lot of tools and you have made a lot of deadlines for who want to train the primary care workers in epilepsy. But if we have, for example, to use the MSGAP or something like the MSGAP, as you say, every country is a single context with its real culture and this tool will need some adaptation. This work have to be done first before the implementation of the tool. And the sensitization, the awareness about the epilepsy before to start the implementation, all the things need financial support. As you know, epilepsy is a non-communicable disease which is not the priority of funding in our countries. So if you want to implement this kind of tool, how you can find financial or finding support?
Yeah, so I think the bottom line is, funding is extremely important and finding finances is extremely important. And we have in the primary care task force discussed this at length. Ingmar has, even whilst he was presenting and showcasing the ILAE Academy, emphasized that finances are extremely important. But we also believe that, when it comes to primary care, people would not probably be able to shell out money to do a package. They have so many different things, so many different conditions to learn about. So yes, funding is extremely important. We are trying to put up a package or a tool. Whatever tools have to be low-cost tools, whatever tools have to be, they do not have to be paid. I actually personally believe that they, at least for primary care, because it's such a basic level kind of training, it cannot be paid. But yes, we have to find the funds from some place or the other. We are trying to develop it through a grant that we have got, but eventually, yes, all of this would require a lot of money, and you're absolutely right. And finding the finances is extremely important.
Thank you, Prof. I think we are in the end of our session. We have already listened all our speakers, and all the speakers can be acted as the panelists also. If they have a question for other the speakers, they can, they can ask them directly. And Prof. Tucker, I don't know if you want to add something to the different session.
No, well, thanks very much, Zainab, and thank you to all the speakers. I'm very impressed by everyone who's spoken, and as Gallo said, it's a strong team that we have, and it's onwards and upwards. Ingmar, if I may say, that's your online teaching program, the ILAE e-learning program, looks very exciting. Have you had a good response so far? I mean, to the part one.
Yes. Sorry, I cannot turn on my video. However, I think we're doing good. We have a couple of hundred participants all over the world. We just a couple of months ago, we just published in Epileptic Disorder Open Access a review, or let's say the prospect to level 2, but we reviewed therein our experience with the previous level 1 that opened in 2020. I think in June 2020 was the launch of level 1. So yeah, a couple of hundred participants, thousands of certificates yet issued. So and we think that this is going further, and you have to understand that the ILAE Academy should be a common, really a virtual a campus where everybody finds its learning level and its learning tools and products as they wish. And at the end, Gagandeep's primary care curriculum would be there. That will be probably for free. For nurses, we probably have something for surgeons, and then for the epileptologists as our main constituents. But this really is the big picture here. And since we start from the scratch, it will take some time, but I can tell you that ILAE is very supportive, and they spend really a lot of financial resources into that. So I'm very confident. Next year.
Yeah, so exactly. So it looks, I mean, you've had 2 years, and it looks like there's a potential to scale quite significantly. And what's the interest from low and middle income countries? I mean, if you are there quite a few people on the level 1 from low and middle income countries?
Yes. Obviously, this is where the majority of our people come from. They always have problem with the fees. Although I personally believe the fee is not too high. It's for a full year subscription to full content, and we also offer bursaries. And most recently, we wrote to all the ILAE chapters around the world and offering them again a 20% discount. So that we really try to we will not give it away for free. You must understand that if something is for free, people just sign in and they will never complete, and we have to pay the platform for inscribed users. So then we make a deficit. So we have to charge a little bit, but that is not for profit, right? So yeah, it is aiming at the low income and resource poor settings. Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's the universal experience. If it's for free, it's not worth anything, you know. So
exactly.
So you know, no matter what it is, you've got to pay something for it, and that is our experience as well. Is that you know, if you've paid something, you're going to finish the course. If you don't, you don't. I mean, that's
exactly.
Yeah.
I think there is no more question. And we are on this end of this session, this incredible session. It was amazing. We learned a lot from all our speakers. We thank them for their time. And we also congratulate the African Commission of the ILAE, which make a great effort to really take out epilepsy on the shadow, because there is differentiation for the neurologists or the different actors in epilepsy is important, and this is the first step to go ahead. So thank you, everybody. I think this webinar is will be available on demand. And thank you, everybody, and see you for the 4th session of EpiSkills Africa ILAE. Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Have a good day. Bye-bye.